Great job. I'd like to now introduce Scene 3 of Blacks and Wax. My name is Rosa Park. I grew up in the city of Pine Level, Alabama. They had a new school building and bus transportation for white students, but the black students had to go to the one-room schoolhouse with shabby desks and not enough school supplies across town. This made me determined to do something about racial discrimination when I became an adult. So, when I got married, I joined the NAACP as a secretary. In Montgomery, Alabama, in that day, they had a law that required all public transportation to be segregated. So black people had to enter through the back door and had to sit in the last rows in the back of the bus. One day, after a long day at work, I took a seat in the first few rows in the back of the bus. As the bus started to fill up, the bus driver noticed and moved the color sign back so white people could sit down and told me I had to move my seat. I refused and remained seated. Because of this, the bus driver got upset, called the police, had me arrested, and put in jail. Black people were fed up with the discrimination and started a boycott. White people burned down churches and black businesses. I even lost my job because we stood up for our rights. But the bus companies were losing money and needed black people to ride the buses again. So they changed the law so black people were able to sit anywhere they wanted on the bus. My life goal for equal rights brought about change. So the next time you sit on the bus, think about the struggle black people have to go through for equal rights for everyone. My name is Shirley Chisholm. I was born November 30th, 1924. I attended and graduated Brooklyn College in 1946. I began my career as a teacher and later earned my master's degree in elementary education. I became politically active with the Democratic Party. I also joined several organizations, including the League of Women Voters. I decided to run for the New York State Assembly. My ideals were perfect for the time. Across the nation, activists were working for equal civil rights for all Americans, regardless of race. In 1964, I was elected to the Assembly. While on the Assembly, I sponsored 50 bills, including one that provided assistance for poor students to go into higher education. In 1968, I decided to take on a bigger arena, the U.S. Congress. I defeated opponent James Farmer and became the first black congresswoman, a representative. I served the 12th District of New York, was re-elected, and served 7 more terms. I even made a bid to be the President of the United States. Although I didn't receive the Democratic nomination, I was the first black woman to take the challenge. I then returned to the classroom and ended my career. I even wrote 2 books on my life as a congresswoman. I challenge you to use our political system to fight for equal rights for yourself and your family.
My name is Thurgood Marshall. I was born on July 2nd, 1908, in Baltimore, Maryland, U.S. I started out as a lawyer and civil rights activist, but my career would lead me to becoming the first African-American Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. I attended and graduated with honors from Lincoln University of Pennsylvania in 1930. I wanted to attend the University of Maryland Law School, but segregation was still alive and well, and they rejected me. Instead, I attended Howard University Law School. My mentor and law school dean, Charles Hamilton Houston, encouraged me and my peers to view law as a vehicle for social change. I received Juris Doctorate in 1933, ranking first in my class. After my graduation from Howard, I started a private law practice in Baltimore. A personal victory was my win in Murray versus Pearson in 1935, which I successfully sued the University of Maryland to deny an African-American admission to its law school simply on the basis of race.
Go ahead.
In 1936, I became a staff lawyer at Houston for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, taking lead in 1938 and chief of the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund 2 years later. As an attorney, I successfully battled before the U.S. Supreme Court the case of Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka in 1954. The act declared racial segregation unconstitutional in American public schools. In September 1961, I was nominated to the U.S. Court of Appeals by President John F. Kennedy, even though several senators who did not want me to hold the position delayed my approval for several months. President Lyndon B. Johnson named me U.S. Solicitor General in July 1965 and nominated me to the U.S. Supreme Court on August 13, 1967. I was approved by the U.S. Senate on August 30, 1967. Most people would say I was a liberal justice. I stressed the need for equitable and just treatment of the minorities. I had mainly opposed capital punishment and favored the rights of the national government over the rights of the states. I retired in 1991 and was known as the Great Dissenter. I was successful in making the law work during the civil rights movement. I challenge you to fight for your rights using the legal system.
My name is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I was leader for the civil rights movement during the 50s and the 60s. I changed the history of this country and was determined with God on my side to make this world a better place for all people. I studied theology and the peaceful protest practices of Gandhi, which gave me inspiration. My father was a Baptist minister, and I was led in his footsteps. I attended Morehouse College in Atlanta when I was only 15 years old. I went on to Boston, and seeing the less aggressive way whites and blacks in the North mingled only increased my hatred of segregation. I was assassinated by James Earl Ray, but every January, my birthday is celebrated as a holiday. You do not forget the civil rights movement, and do your best to get the education that I gave my life for.
I'd now like to introduce the 44th President of the United States, Barack Obama.
Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's doing fine. I'm here with the students, parents, and friends at the Milton H. Prep School in Eastern New Jersey. I'm glad you could join us today. I want to tell you how valuable getting a good education is in your life. When I was a young boy, my family lived in Indonesia for a few years, and my mother didn't have the money to send me to where all the American kids went to school. She decided to teach me extra lessons herself, Monday through Friday at 4:30 a.m. Now, I wasn't too happy about waking up that early, and a lot of times I fall asleep right there at the kitchen table. But whenever I complained, my mother would just give me one of those looks and say,